Coleman, I have to say that what a beautiful tribute this movie is. I've seen it twice now. I saw it. I was lucky enough to see it in a theater, which had a very rapturous response from a lot of people. It was sort of just like, I like when you go see a movie and you can hear people agreeing, or you can just hear somebody vocally responding, start to finish, the whole thing. And then I will say, watching it then later at home, which I know a lot of people are going to see it that way, the bigness of this is never lost at all. And a colleague of mine that saw Rustin, I think at Telluride, had said, he was like, the screen can barely contain Colman Domingo's presence. So I'm sort of, I don't really have a point for that, but I'm just saying that, like, I feel like this movie is going to have a really amazing reaction. So I'm glad I can talk to you in this sort of moment before a lot more people can see it.
Thank you.
Yeah. You know, a moment that I really love, it's towards the end. It is before people are still setting up for the march. And you are looking out, I think, onto the Washington Monument, which I just recently went there for the first time myself in the last couple of years. And that image is very inspiring. And you start to sing sort of under your breath, Jesus Walked This Lonesome Valley. And then I love how the moment you're like, da 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 da, and you sort of go off. I was wondering if you could tell me just that specific moment, what that meant to you as an actor, how, you know, it would feel to give that moment to Bayard, Rustin, just because it's small, but I feel like it carries a lot of weight. Yeah.
Well, first of all, I'm so happy you focused in on that small moment. That was a moment George and I talked about extensively.
Yeah.
And because it was just this very small moment, a very private moment. And it's a private moment of, this is the day. We've organized, we've planned, we've dreamed, we've hoped for this day. And then it's just a small moment you get with Bayard. Bayard is not talking to anyone else. It's not performative. He doesn't have to be something else. He barely has his Mid-Atlantic standard accent in that, because you know, he uses it to effect, but he's just by himself. And he's just one man on a mission, and it's his hopes and dreams and prayers. And I love that it's the song, Jesus Walked This Lonesome Valley. He had to walk it by himself. That says a lot about him.
Yeah.
That he's sort of walking a path on his own, and he knows it. He's aware of it. And then it sort of trails off. And then it's kind of, because I love that sometimes audiences laugh at that line, because I hope and pray they come today. Because there's just that little seed of doubt. Like, is it going to happen? So I love that it shows a tiny bit of vulnerability right there. That's what it does. That's what that moment is for me. And then it goes on. Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of like you it's verbalized, but there's a part where, like, I just feel like I can imagine Bayard waiting to see that whole space filled with people. There's this anticipation, this waiting in that moment, but it's that sort of like almost indescribable, like
it's like opening night. Are people going to show up?
Yeah, exactly.
Are people actually going to come to this? Like, it's opening night for a writer. You know, writers never believe that people are actually going to come and you're going to come and watch this play that I wrote that was in my head. You're actually coming. You're actually buying a ticket and coming. Yeah, you're making an effort to be here. There's a little bit. There's a seed of doubt. Just a seed. Yeah.
Okay. I want to talk about fear for a second.
Okay.
First of all, I have to say, this might be like a two-part question almost. The Bayard's first meeting with Elias in the restroom. First of all, that is loaded with so much stuff. We want to talk about, I mean, Fellow Travelers is sort of tackling that, like, right now on television, and like all the stuff about, you know, the cruisy nature, the way that he leaves the room and like brushes up against you. I like that, like, a very stoic looking white man walks in, not even his eyes are down almost. But Elias has a line where he says, "Teach me how to not be afraid." And that line was echoing in my head the whole movie. And there is another shot of you at night when you see the gentleman by the truck, and then you have to run away. And there's the other interaction that Bayard has with Elias. But there's something about a very palpable fear. Some of the only times that we see Bayard like truly afraid by himself, when he's by himself. I guess I just wanted to know like how present that was for you, just because it's a very specific thing that I think you and George really present in a really, like I said, palpable way. And I latched onto that. Like,
I think that thank you so much, Joey. I think the thing that we wanted to always be conscious of is like that there was danger being clear. Yeah. There was always danger, and you're trying to figure out signals. That's why signaling was very important. Like you're saying in the bathroom. It's like, first of all, I remember George and I talked about. I'm like, this guy comes up, and there's another urinal, but he comes right next to me. That's all. He's already like,
like ping.
What's up with that? And this person's very talkative. It's another clue. What's going on? And this guy's very engaged with me. Okay, let me figure out what that is, because I don't know him. Well, what does he want? And then he gives me the way he looks at me. And then Bayard's like, okay, well, let me test the waters. You don't know me. I will come at you. You're like, oh, are you playing? Because I'm really good at this game, if that's what you're going to do. And then he realizes, oh, this person's a bit of a fish out of water. He's trying something on for size. He said, okay, I can navigate that too. But always there's a sense of danger. Even as openly gay as he was, he still was like, it's open yet protected at the same time. He says, I cannot hide what I can't conceal. He said, I am openly gay. Even I think sometimes he has a flourish and everything. It's all his own choosing. He said, but he's like, I cannot suppress who I am. But it is danger living in the world. So I think that was something that we wanted to make sure was always clear, especially anytime you saw Bayard outside of, the political nature of things, when you saw him outside of bars, when you saw him walking down the street, when you saw him standing outside of the bar when it's being raided, there is pure terror. Because, and for me, I want folks to know that there was that terror that exists in many communities these days as well. People think it's so far in the past. I'm like, no, it exists. Well, it can take your whole livelihood, your job, your family, everything. There was pure danger.
I still think, I think it boggles my mind, not boggles my mind, but I think it boggles the mind of other people who are, just learning who Bayard Rustin is. Yeah. And like, I told a younger coworker, I think they were like in their early 20s, and they said, I was telling them about the movie after I'd seen it, and they were like, well, who was he? And I was describing who Bayard Rustin was. And he was like, oh, wait, so he was an openly gay, black man with Martin Luther King. And like, they didn't it's sort of like, he couldn't, there's a sense in the movie where he basically says, I can't hide who I am.
Yeah.
And he will not hide who he is, because he sort of like can't hide who he is. And I think that's a reason why I'm also so excited for this movie to come out, because of realizing how like right there he is the whole time.
Well, because it's like funny, that people wish that he hid who he was, because they could still utilize his intelligence, his wit, his organizational skills. But he's just like, everything about him was like, even the way he wore his hair was not symbolic of like the movement. It was like sort of like white and shocking and kind of like a hippie at times, you know what I mean? And he always had his shirt. I have so many images of him having his shirt, his tie undone and his sleeves rolled up. And that was, he's supposed to be polished and everything, part of the movement. But he was very much about getting the work done. Yeah. And every so often he'd have a ring or some jewelry, because he'd pick up things in his travel. And for other people, it would signal that he was gay. He was like, I am who I am.
Yeah, when I was looking up pictures of him, like I just imagined him like doing this. It was like, all right, let's go. Let's
Yeah.
let's do the thing.
He was about the work. He wasn't about optics.
Yeah, yeah, wow. Even sort of going back to that fear thing, like I love that the choice that the way when you come into the office and the radio is playing and you rush over to the radio and you turn it off before the word homosexual is fully said.
Right.
Like that's a great moment.
It is because it is the thought that even though everyone knows that you're gay, saying it is a huge violation.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Goodness.
It's a thought that everyone, how people would know that, oh, Uncle Bayard lives with his friend.
Oh yeah.
But they would never say what it was, but they knew.
Yeah, it's sort of like they're saying it. Yeah.
Makes it more real. Saying it makes it real, and that's just his own bias.
Yeah. Wow. I love the scene. It's a very brief scene. It's early in towards the beginning of the film that you have with Audra McDonald. Just first of all, like Audra McDonald. My husband is a huge Audra fan. He didn't know she was in the movie, so like when we watched it and we were in the theater, he just like Audra McDonald. And it was like, I was like, yep.
But you kept it from him. I love it.
Yeah. Just sort of, I just kind of wanted to know like what maybe conversations you guys had with other, people in the movement, talking to other people in the movement, maybe like learning from each other. I think that's really sort of an interesting thing that this film does, plunking so many people in here whose names we may have heard before. But I don't know, the intimacy between the two of you is so great. Like I could watch 2 more hours just of you two.
I love it. Well, that was the beautiful thing because that everyone did their research.
Yeah.
And I did some. Of course, I did research on every other character that I'm involved with, but everyone did extensive research on the characters. So then when we came together, there was such a collision in a gorgeous way of like what in your operating skills and what this character knows in their operating skills, and the beautiful collision of ideology and belief. You know what I mean? That creates great drama.
Yeah, the sort of and it made me actually think about how other actors work. Obviously, coming to a production like this, but doing all the research on that reminds me so much of all these amazing people that came together to share the ideas, to make something together. That's I could tell there's like a real great sense of everyone coming together with this. I'm sure everyone's asking you about speaking, but I'm a sort of a voice and speech nerd. And
no one's asked me about it.
Really? Are you kidding?
Which is what? No one's asked me yet.
That it. Okay, well then I'm gonna ask. I'm obsessed with the rhythm of what you did here. I'm so interested in like I remember like being in class and like rolling on the floor and talking about breath and support and all that nerdy stuff, pretending you're a tiger or something.
Yes.
I just wanted to know, like, from you, you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do.
But I guess I just wanted to know, like, what was key for you on like a practical, physical thing with that?
I did extensive voice work to get Bayard's voice.
You're such a great, you're great with words, and you orate very well. So sorry, go ahead.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. I thought it was very. First of all, if anyone goes to any of Bayard's, whether debates or interviews, they will notice that he speaks maybe 3 octaves higher than I do. And he's got a very thin, reedy voice, and. Yes, and I wanted to just to find that pitch because that was, voice is a key, a clue to a person. I think like where they if you have a lot of bass in your voice, where it comes from, with chakras, all that stuff. So anyway, all that stuff. So anyway, but he speaks up here to whether it's to be heard. He also had a Mid-Atlantic Standard ish accent, and I say ish because he made it up. It didn't come from Westchester, Pennsylvania. It came from an idea. And I don't know what that idea was whether it was like the way that people like Katharine Hepburn and Billy Davis spoke or something. But also it was heightened. And he would use it. There were times when you look in different interviews, you're like, wow, that accent is very thick. Or, wow, he sounds a little British now. Wow, wait, he doesn't have much of an accent there. And then you ask, what is this accent? And then I asked Rochelle Horowitz, who is one of who's portrayed in the film. I said, well, what was that accent? But he made that up.
Mm.
He was so in tune with being his own creation.
Mm-hmm.
He even gave himself his own accent, which is extremely liberating. You know what I mean?
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? He's like, I want to be who I want to be. I want to sound like the way I want to sound. I want to, you know what I mean? I think that's beautiful. He gave himself no limitation. And so I did much work, whether it's breath work, placement, all that to get that pitch. And then once I really got there, I was using it in rehearsals for a while. And then George asked me to bring it closer to mine, just a bit more midway. He said, take a little bit off, just to keep that part of you in there. Mm-hmm. He said, he said, I want to still feel it's coming honestly from you at all times. So, which is beautiful. So we found this middle ground of the accent, and it was beautiful. And then, of course, I had prosthetics used for my missing tooth, and Bayard had a very, very slight lisp.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was missing teeth. And so that actually helped me when it comes to at first. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be able to get through this, because I'm a bit more of a speech impediment. Mm-hmm. But I would put them in an hour before I went to set and work with them and work with the teeth and work with them to just really work. So it became a great challenge because I have a lot of dialogue. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times I believe he speaks very quickly. So he doesn't have time, so it's just to push through. And it was really just a great obstacle for me, because he still had to think quickly and move quickly, yet I have this impediment, Oh
my gosh! Like first of all, I can't imagine what it's like to have prosthetics in your mouth like that, just because this is where everything starts from, almost, for an actor using words, especially for a character like that. So there's something about, I remember the first scene that you have where they're talking to Martin, and you sort of I love how you kind of burst out almost like magic, almost. He just sort of magically appears. And
what he does, if you notice, is he comes out of the shadows.
Yes.
That's exactly that. It's a very specific thing that George and our DP Tobias wanted to do, and I thought was a very interesting way for my entrance. I thought I was like, oh, they have me actually. I'm in, because I remember I went back and looked at in Video Village, and I thought, oh, I'm coming out of shadows. I was by the window looking out while this conversation was happening. I literally was in the dark, and then he comes out of the shadows. That's basically saying, it starts, I think, on Martin Luther King, which is the usual place. He's in all of the light. Usually it's Martin Luther King, and then this figure comes out of the shadows and usurps the film. And said, it's actually, the lens is now on me, and Martin is a supporting player.
And it's the way, there are a couple, I wrote them down, the lines where you say, you would think Martin Luther King's in your movie, he's the lead, or he's going to be the focus, and you say, who told you that you are not our man? Or somebody else telling Martin Luther King, own your voice. That's so, I knew from that scene, I was like, all right, this is something completely different than what because
Martin Luther King is always seen as the heroic, he knew it all. But what we're dealing with is a young Martin. This is Martin before he became, after I Have a Dream speech, and became the superstar that he was. But this is also for you to also unpack the movement and the people who inspired one another. So it was never just Martin. You know what I mean? Martin, on the day of the March on Washington, was just one of the speakers. There were many other speakers too.
Right.
You know what I mean? There are many more important figures there. You know what I mean? That were part of this movement, which is great. But I think that, that's what the film does well, I think, is to let you know that there were many other moving parts and people that were needed to get something done.
Yeah.
And Bayard was a tremendous inspiration to Martin Luther King.
Yeah. All right, Colman, thank you so much for your time. I love the movie so much. I've seen it twice. I want to see it. I can't wait. This is going to be the movie that, when we go back for the holidays, let's Rustin. So it's I just think your work is really remarkable in it. I just think it's really wonderful. So thank you so much for your time. And
it's always good talking to you too.
Yeah,
thank
you too.
Joey. Appreciate it. Tell your husband I said hi.
I will. All right. Have a good day.
You too.